34 minutes after the hour, I'm Hugh Hewitt with David Allen White, Christopher Hitchens. Professor White, I go back to you with two questions. A quick one. Ought we to virtually burn the heretics Bethel and Soburn about their Shakespeare identity just because we left that hanging? And then, why does the development of language support the supernatural, to return to the conversation?
Fair enough. I am so weary of the Shakespeare authorship question. All I can say is the man wrote the plays, and let's give him credit for them. I'll let it go at that.
All right.
But if I can state something of how I view the mystery of language, and I think it is very mysterious. By the way, I do agree with you. I took an interesting course once on the whole notion of generative grammar and substructure linguistics. It is quite interesting. I'm not totally convinced. It's obviously worth the study. But what I'm talking about is something even more mysterious. Example, I was once sitting at the dinner table with a godson who had not spoken much, and suddenly looked up from the table and said, "I want more peas." The parents jumped up, ran to the phone, called the grandparents. There was a big to-do. He'd spoken his first sentence. And the kid sat there mystified because he didn't get his peas. Now, it's a very simple example, but the fact that something happened in the brain of the child, that those little round green vegetables were called by the signifier peas, and he had to use the word to get the thing, and he made the connection and uttered it forth, is unlike anything else in the world, and certainly not like nature, in that I think you would agree with me, everything in science and nature basically we understand by cause and effect. Fair enough?
Yes, and that's why I say the natural world is wonderful enough.
But that cannot explain this mysterious, and I defer to an American philosopher named Charles Peirce, spelled P-I-E-R-C-E, who states that the mystery of what happens when a child looks at a furry beast and says cat, or round green vegetables and says peas, is not cause and effect, but he uses the word triadic, because you need the brain of the child, you need the furry animal, and you need the signifier cat, and we suddenly have something that's three-way, not cause and effect. Now, you can probably guess where I'm going. You certainly wouldn't agree with me, but in the beginning was the word, let there be light, and suddenly we have in man something that I would say in the inner life goes beyond what can be explained by science in the world of nature. That is for me the beginning.
Known to my family, there was a little boy who just didn't speak for a long time, and then finally did utter a not bad sentence, and he was asked by his astounded parents, what had taken him so long. He said he hadn't been able to think of anything worth saying. We know that what you say is self-evidently true because, for example, children say mouses instead of mice. And
yes.
They don't hear adults say mouses. So they see a mouse and then they see two and they say mouses. So they're clearly using something that isn't taught them.
It's true.
Innate.
But I mean, what I'm saying
much more impressive than the opening passage of the Gospel of St. John is the realization that at a certain point, not very far back in the midst of evolutionary time, we split off from our cousins and developed a prefrontal lobe and the ability to master language and acquire memory.
But where did it come from?
We are not absolutely clear exactly how this happened, but we're a lot clearer than we were even, say, 2 or 3 years ago. And I make no doubt that it will soon be very apparent how this happened. All the intervening steps will be known.
And will we know, Christopher Hitchens,
is on my side there.
Will we know where, Christopher Hitchens, the Big Bang came from in the relatively near future?
No, I think quite possibly not, though. If you read the work of Professor Steven Weinberg, there's a book called Looking Upward, I think is its title. I'm sure that's it. There are some incredibly marvelous and suggestive essays about that. The work of our great physicist is already making Einstein seem dated.
And you think we already know, David Allen White?
I think we know and we've been told, but again, I hear this as another act of faith, that in the future, the revelation will be given to us and then we will understand.
No.
So, the revelation will come through exploration.
Now you let yourself down.
Models.
You let yourself down. What I just said was nothing like a prophecy. it's an exponential projection of extraordinary accumulations of scientific work that have already been brought about.
I will be right back with Christopher Hitchens and David Allen White. Don't go anywhere. We got 2 more segments to go. 44 minutes after the hour, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Penultimate segment with Christopher Hitchens and David Allen White. Professor Wright, right before we went to break, Mr. Hitchens said that his confidence in the explanation for unknown mysteries about the person and science is, quote, the exponential projection of accumulated experience with fact. If you take that standard and apply it to the exponential projection of accumulative experience with the unknown, beginning with Socrates and extending through Walker Percy, doesn't that point us overwhelmingly to a belief in God, contrary to Mr. Hitchens' most recent book?
Well, you see, that is precisely what brought me back to questions of faith and eventually brought me into the church. To quote my, if I may, one of our favorite writers, Evelyn Waugh, the church is there, and it is a coherent philosophical system that Waugh says makes intransigent historical claims. It's difficult to ignore. Let me just put it that way. But in any case, I do see at the center of things a mystery. But that mystery and the acknowledgement of that mystery allows us to go exploring. My worry is that science is turning into scientism as such, and too many people are taking it exclusively, and as they do so, the mystery of man himself is disappearing. You quote this line in the book, and it's appropriate. Hamlet saying to Horatio, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." By the end of the book, by the end of the play, there's the astonishing moment at the death of Hamlet, when Horatio, the skeptic and the agnostic, in his farewell says, "Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest." I find it overwhelmingly beautiful and a great mystery that Horatio has learned there is more than he believed of in that universe. I find the mystery, the emotion, the beauty of it overwhelming, and I don't think it was based on something false or phony. I believe it has a very real base that is different from science because we are half dust, and we explore the dust through nature, and we're half divinity and language and the mystery of the internal life and our spiritual yearnings, which I think you now put into the world of science, draw us in that direction.
Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah, well, I don't think Hamlet saw the ghost either, though you can't have the play without it. But you see, you're trying to force me to sound like an absolutely dry and arid materialist. I mean,
no, you're not.
The fact that Democritus and Epicurus and Lucretius worked out, I have no idea how they managed to do this, that all matter was made of atoms. I dare say you don't contest that.
Matter, I would certainly say that matter is made of atoms.
Well, for a long, long time, the atomist theory was viciously persecuted by the church, and the works of Lucretius were nearly, by the way, very beautiful poetry, were very nearly completely destroyed. Only one copy survived the Dark Ages.
Well, let me put it this way.
The problem is when it becomes... I'm made of the same constituent matter as other animals and vegetable and mineral doesn't depress me. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. I find it rather a wonderful thought, if anything. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter subjectively whether it depresses me or not. The question is it or is it not the case? And you seem to be almost to be saying, which I think is, by the way, almost inseparable from the concept of faith, that we would be happier if we believed this kind of thing. Not that it's true or that it's morally valid, but that it's consoling. Now, I cannot make my mind work like that.